one of the benefits of doing this. So what we're trying to do is, if everybody could make sure your video is on, then Shuja is going to try and add everyone in here, so we'll have a screen full of little screens, and we can just see who the people are out there. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not sure Shuja is going to be able to do that because we're having some AV trouble that he's trying to solve. But in the audience, if you can turn your screen on, that'd be great. Now, I'm broadcasting here from Longfellow House in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's very near MIT. It's the home for Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. We lived here for almost 50 years. And very appropriate for a poetry event. You may have remembered this from the times that you were at MIT. Now, the other thing, when we were trying to figure out a name for this event, our club has certain tracks. And I originally thought that we could put the poetry event in the biotech track because it's a lot of romantic poetry deals with matters of the heart. But then it occurred to me that a much more appropriate one is the track for the CEO series, the venture capitalists, because all of us know that the big bucks, I mean, the big money is in writing poetry. So we thought we'd do it that in the next track. Now, what our plans are for tonight is the first part of the program will consist of the people who wrote me and said they'd like to recite, and we'll go through those. And then if you would like to share a poem and you did not sign up, the second part of the program will have an open mic. Anyone can join in. So during this first part, starting now or anytime, add a comment or go down there in the Q&A, send a thing in with your name and just that you say, I'd like to offer something or recite during the second part. And then we'll collect those and call on you as the time goes on. Presenters are invited to share a poem that they wrote or a poem that someone else wrote. All poems are welcome. So I think what we're going to do, Shuja, if you're still there, now if you could actually start the program and turn off all the other screens, and we'll start with the first poem, which is very important because it's going to be me. So we ready to start with this one? Shuja? He's busy. Okay. So what this poem is this is a poem I prepared for my daughter's wedding, which was just a few months ago. It has a link because my daughter graduated from MIT in 2013, course 10. And the man she married, a wonderful guy, he's also a chemical engineer. So that's just about the best you can do in the world, I think. Now, I have to warn you that this poem is rather sentimental. And those of you who are fathers of a daughter can relate to the relationship there. Those of you who are female will understand, perhaps from the point of view of your father's love for you. I also have to warn you that sometimes I cry when I try, when I try to recite this poem. So hopefully I'll be able to make it through tonight. To set the scene, this was after imagine the ceremony's over. We're down in the reception. We're going to have dinner. And the names of the people in the poem is my wife is named Tina. My daughter is Elizabeth, and the man she married is Noah. So now imagine we're down there after the ceremony in the reception, and I look into Elizabeth's eyes and I say, to Elizabeth, I saw you take your first breath and held you close to me. Something deep within my soul changed there instantly. You unlocked a magic door that set my heart awhirl and let me feel a father's love for his little baby girl. I watched you take your first step and wish upon a star, taught you how to ride a bike and how to drive a car. The first day you went to school, we walked there hand in hand. I realized Elizabeth made me a better man. Now you'll take another step in the journey of your life. I walked you down the aisle and you became Noah's wife. The love he has for you completes his world. And now I share the love I have for my little baby girl. As you stand before me in your wedding gown with lace, I knew this day was coming, one I'd gladly face. I thank the angels up above who picked you out for me. I love you to the moon and back, times infinity. Tina and I are proud of the woman that you are. Our wish for you was granted when we wished upon that star. In the years to come, we wish you health and happiness. We pray that your and Noah's marriage will be blessed. So live and laugh. Let love and joy fill your world. And remember that you'll always be my little baby girl. So that's it. And then they didn't throw rice at her, but then they went out and they had their honeymoon and stuff. So anyway, that means something to me. So now we'll begin going through some other folks. And, Alan, you're on. Oh, thank you, Garvey. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. We can do, I guess, there's a symbol on your screen. Well, I guess there's not the thumbs up one here. But anyway, this is nice to do. So, Alan, I think you're up next. Are you there? Oh, great. Alan's going to do a Robert Frost poem for us. You ready?
Thank you very much, Harbo. And again, kudos to you for an excellent job of organizing and moderating this. Robert Frost wrote The Road Not Taken in 1915 as a joke for a friend, the poet Edward Thomas. When they walked together, Thomas was chronically indecisive about which road they ought to take and often lamented that they should have taken the other road. What did that really mean? While Frost wrote that the two roads are really about the same, choosing a less traveled one could be perceived as taking a less traveled path in order to be more of a self-confident individual. This poem is somewhat mystical, enchanting, yet has several contradictions, which are quite mysterious. Here we go. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down, one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere, ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood. And I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. When Alan told me he was going to recite that, I thought that's great because we've all spent time in New England, and Frost was there with his wonderful New England images, particularly of the fall and mending wall and so on. So thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. Carl Frederick.
Right now. Hi, okay, we're off mute. I'm from the class of 65, double majors, 65 and 66. Course 6, I took a course in writing of poetry from Professor Barry Spax, and that turned me on to something I hadn't known before. So this is a poem I wrote about 10 years ago. It's called Toot. That great gray pile on the Charles lingers in memory as voices in a long since silent choir, walking the infinite mile, welcoming sounds of steam pipes deep in the interior. On a midwinter night, these halls are always warm. Known and unknown names letter office doors. Did anyone ever see W.A. Hokanson, Bursar? Imagination roams through unnumbered lives. Why am I here, wrapped in the edifice of dreams, while problem sets await and books lie unopened in my room? Thanks.
That's great. That's great. That brings back memories, not all of them pleasant.
Harbo, I used to go for long walks every night. I used to walk from Senior House down Memorial Drive to Mass Ave and then back through the Institute.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Whenever I go back there for a meeting, I usually stay at the Marriott in Kendall Square because my meetings are overweight at the other end, and it gives me an excuse to go the infinite corridor and walk through the whole building. The walls are still covered with posters for events. Let's see, is Patricia? Yeah, Patricia, great. Patricia Liu.
Hi, everyone. Hold on one moment. The poem I'm reciting was written by Hafez, a 14th century Persian mystic and poet. It was introduced to me by a friend last year, and it seems appropriate for these current times. The Place Where You Are Now by Hafez. This place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. Wherever your eyes and arms and heart can move against the earth in the sky, the beloved has bowed there. Our beloved has bowed there knowing you are coming. I could tell you a priceless secret about your real worth, dear pilgrim, but any unkindness to yourself, any confusion about others will keep one from accepting the grace, the love, the sublime freedom divine knowledge always offers to you. Never mind, Hafez, about the great requirements this path demands of the wayfarers, for your soul is full of wine tonight to withhold the wondrous truth from this world. But because I am so clever and generous, I have already clearly woven a resplendent lock of his tresses as a remarkable truth and gift in this poem for you. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Very nice spiritual poem. We need that in this time. Thank you very much, Patricia. Now, our next poem will be by Mort Grosser, who is one of our published poets. And that's not Mort, I don't think, Shuja, if you can try and get him. But because Mort has written a bunch of poetry, which has appeared in The Atlantic and in Harper's and The New Yorker, some pretty prestigious magazines. So Mort Grosser, you are on.
Okay, I can't see myself. So,
Yeah, Shuja.
it says Bird and Candy on my screen.
Yeah.
Now I see John Chisholm.
Hey, there you go. Whoop,
Am I,
you were there for a minute, Mort.
That means that you need to find an option somewhere that says start video.
I have to say it. Do that. It's all I have on my screen says stop video.
You're on.
Okay.
Mort, we can all see you, Mort.
Okay, cool. That's great. I'm going to read one of my own poems with an MIT connection, more light verse than philosophy, although I've written both kinds. I originally wrote it as a present for my friend and fellow alum Burton Richter on the occasion of his winning the Nobel Prize. A Pocket History of Physics, or The Incredible Shrinking Point. The earliest physicist of all, Olduvai man, Neanderthal, to satisfy his urge to know, would lever boulders off a cliff and watch them fall, immense and swift, directly on the tribes below. The Greeks invented war machines. The laws of physics gave the means to hurl a rock with awesome force at enemies outside the wall, a parabolic dying fall that failed to stop the Trojan horse. Renaissance scientists, less robust, were more sophisticated. Must we work on such a massive scale, they asked? And Galileo showed how bocce balls would crack the road at Pisa. That may be a tale. Victorians sought the stable life, the gracious home, an ample wife, and billiards for a gentle sport. A new point. On the felted slate, substantial dons would demonstrate elastic collisions over port. Ignore illusions you can feel, the moderns ordered. What is real about the universe is hidden in a drop of oil or less. Theorists are allowed to guess. Students do as they are bidden. The elemental atoms flow around each other. Row on row of plotted crosses only yields the path of points and phantom fields. Another psi, another muon or neutrino, we each do one. The Eightfold Way. Detectors fail, the trail diminishes, the grail is smaller still. The distant lark descending in the abyss calls seductively. All reason falls away before the spectral quark. Science triumphant. Soon we'll find what vexed the medieval mind and put the mystics in a trance and wore monastic scholars thin. How many physicists can dance on something smaller than the head of a pin? Thank you.
Well, that's good. Thank you, Mort. Thank you. There's some very small physicists on the head of a pin. Chemists, we don't fit. We don't fit. So let's see. Our next one here is I think I'm getting tired of being in here in Cambridge. I'm going to go home. So Jennifer Zhao.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Zhao. My poem is a photon. My brother's best friend since first grade, Lulu, died last month in Wuhan. Wuhan is a college city, a city of history, and with great musicians and poets in the ancient times. Today, I dedicated the poem I wrote a few years ago to Lulu. He was like a brother to me. A photon. You disappeared into thin air, as if hiding behind a jade screen through which we can only sense the shadows. If only I were a tiny photon blending into a ray of sunlight. If only I could catch a moment to wave and smile at you.
It's very nice. But now he's gone, huh?
It's gone.
That's a shame. Thank you. Very moving.
You're welcome.
Moving on, John Chisholm. Oh, look, there's my John. Can you unmute or get unmuted there?
Can you hear me?
We can, but I still, I don't see it on the screen yet. Oh, there you go. So this poem is going to be longer than the other ones because I asked John to share with us the first section of his epic poem entitled Integral. And that's it's from his book by the same name. So it's a wonderful combination, I think, of sort of a Robert Service epic poem, but with the mathematical and MIT twist. And if the video works, we'll get some pictures here too, John, right?
Yes. Let me share my screen. Is that okay?
I don't know. Give it a shot. I think Shuj is the expert.
It says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay, Shuj, are you there?
I'm here. Let me share the screen. John, why don't you get started and I will get your slides up.
Okay.
Are you not able to show your screen?
This is the poem that I started when I was a freshman at MIT and finished 10 years later. And it was inspired by a problem set that we had in calculus where the problems seemed to be taking on a life of its own. And anyway, that inspired this poem. I'm just going to share the first third of it. Let's see if I can share the. I can't quite share it yet, but I tell you what, I'll just open it up to the first image. First of all, the poem is in 360 lines. The dedication is homage to Dr. Seuss with apologies to MIT. And this is going to be the first third of it, the problem, the first 120 of 360 lines. And this is what the first image looks like. So I can share my screen. Let's see if I can get it up there. Yeah, okay, here we go. It's asking me to select which screen. Desktop 1, maybe? Share. There's that. PowerPoint. Okay, here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part 1, the problem. I slouched at my desk, surrounded by white, of papers and pages and glaring bright light, succumbing to boredom, confusion, stagnation. I stared for a day at a single equation. To solve that relation had been my assignment. It seemed I had been in that mental confinement for infinite time, or possibly more. But I still was no further ahead than before. One terrible integral stood between me and the final solution. I yearned to be free. A very harsh mistress, that cruel integration, contained a Lagrange hyperfractal gyration. Fervently, tables and texts I entreated. Hildebrand, CRC, all were defeated, and even the Gauss-Cauchy-Hilbert relations could not be applied due to rare complications. Numerical methods on multics had found, the output blown up, and the whole system down. Last but not least, I approached Project Mac, where my hoped coup de grace was a mere cul-de-sac. Thus in a stupor I pondered that night, nothing remaining within me to fight, the problem before me impending a gloom that hung like a mist that pervaded the room. But just as my head was beginning to nod, it seemed that I saw on one sheet something odd. I noticed a factor of pi to the e, which should have been, surely, the square root of 3. And so to eliminate possible doubt, I turned to my notebook and checked the term out. My hunch was correct. In my state nearing slumber, I probably simply miscopied the number. Refocusing eyes on the integrand error about to erase it, my heart stopped with terror. The factor applied to the e, which was wrong, had become an expression some 3 inches long. The red second hand of my wall clock had turned through 5 or 6 radians before I returned to conscious existence and forced out a scream to prove this was not some improbable dream. How could it be? A self-transformation performed all alone by this weird integration. On impulse, I then held the page up to light and watched a dim pi to the e fade from sight. Instantly then, my mind started racing, proposing, rejecting, supposing, erasing. I just started searching my memory, and then the wondrous phenomenon happened again. Spellbound, I watched as the integral sign curled up its serpentine form like a vine. After it wound to this tight deformation, snapped like a spring to its old conformation. All of the energy thereby discharged, the integrand quickly absorbed, then enlarged, transforming itself to a state more diverse. My chances of solving the problem grew worse. Now, 6 of my 22 years I had spent at Einstein's science in perfect content. My fort was advanced mathematical theory, but this was unheard of, impossible here. I quickly reviewed all the courses I'd had in the theory of math that I took as a grad. Just one briefly touched on the self-transformations of partial Lagrange hyperfractal gyrations. The subject was one in which little was known. Its theory advanced by one man on his own. That scholar on whom I could hope to rely was Wolfgang von Garbel, here at Einstein's side. Professional circles knew Garbel's name well, in math and in quantum mechanics as well. Momenta in high school, he proved, were conserved for nuclear particles not then observed. My reading informed me that Garbel dismissed the suggestion that transforms his mind could exist. He strongly believed such a quizzical case would never be met with in physical space. He further had shown, so I learned from a paper he published last year on his research Draper, that if such a thing did exist and began to transform, it would be catastrophic for man. And I quote, if changes took place in such rapid succession, the energy stored in the problem expression would double again and again when at last it would all be released in a nuclear blast. The blast was avoided in only one way. If the problem were solved in the next half a day, I had only 12 hours. I was truly aghast. I knew I must contact von Garbel, and fast. I looked up his number to reach him at home. He lived near the campus, in sight of the dome. I frantically dialed, then all I could hear was the deafening ringing that pounded my ear. In a world self-contained by my mind and the phone, I listened, entranced by electrical tone. Would anyone answer my critical call? My eyes became fixed on the opposite wall. My digital calendar seemed to be glowing. To brighten the large 24 it was showing, I watched it. The 4 faded out. In its place, a 5 came in view on the calendar face. The month was December. I'd almost forgot. Its 25th day seemed familiar somewhat. My birthday? No, that was not it. Then I knew that it had to be Christmas. Christmas was due. Of course, the professors and students as well, every Christmas, that Einstein science, farewell. They all went away, though I couldn't say where, leaving campus and classrooms and offices bare. At last, when this great swirling vortex around me of realizations had ceased to confound me, the logical part of my mind became clear, and I reasoned in perfectly rational fear that not before New Year's, a week, maybe more, would Dr. von Garbel, unlocking the door to his house or apartment, hear ringing and hurry to answer the phone, say hello in a flurry. I hung up the phone. It would not go away. This problem that had to be solved right away. The paper slipped off of my desk to the floor. I grabbed it and blinked. It was changing once more. Well, that's the end of part 1. And so there you have it.
John, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. And John's book is available in bookstores near you, but you can't go there now. So you're probably on Amazon or something. But it's I've read it when it first came out. It's just marvelous. I really endorse it. I love that poem. Thank you very much, John. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Larry, is your audio working down there?
Well, let's see. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, that's great. That's
Hey,
great.
all
Go for
right.
it, man.
Good. All right. Okay. We're living in this very difficult time, and it's challenging. And so I picked this poem, Invictus. Invictus is Latin for unconquered or undefeated, and it was written by the Victorian poet William Ernest Henley in 1875. When Henley was 16, his left leg was amputated due to TB. And in the early 1870s, after seeking treatment for his other leg, he was told that it required a similar procedure. So instead of risking losing it, he turned to the surgeon Joseph Lister, who, by the way, also is a developer of Listerine. Lister was able to save Henley's remaining leg after multiple surgeries. And while recovering in the infirmary, Henley wrote Invictus, a memorable evocation of Victorian Stoicism, that character trait of the stiff upper lip, of self-discipline and fortitude in adversity. This poem is about showing undivided courage and resilient struggle in the face of death and keeping dignity against all the hardships in life. Being the captain of your soul is the ultimate goal in life. This poem has been used many times. Nelson Mandela, while he was in Robben Island prison, used Invictus to inspire other prisoners to keep them going through hard times. Winston Churchill in a speech to the House of Commons in September 1941, paraphrased the last two lines of the poem, stating, "We are still masters of our fate. We still are captains of our souls." James Stockdale, as a U.S. POW in a North Vietnamese prison, recalls being passed the last stanza, written with rat droppings on toilet paper, from fellow prisoner David Hatcher. Captain Renault, played by Claude Rains in the film Casablanca, recites the last two lines to Rick Blaine, played by Humphrey Bogart, referring to Renault's power in Casablanca. The Invictus Games, an international Paralympic event in which wounded armed services personnel and veterans take part, features the poem in its promotions. So it's been around. It's very popular. In fact, on Google, it's the second. The last lines are the second most quoted lines on the planet. It's 14,700 lines. 14,700 times it's been quoted, outdone only by "To err is human, to forgive is divine," which was 14,800,000. So very popular. Maybe many people have heard it. Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, are charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Very nice, Larry. Thank you very much. And thanks for the background on that. Henley was quite a guy. When my mother was in the intensive care unit, she quoted that to the physicians that were there as her. She was a Christian Scientist, and it was her defiance against the medical establishment, I think. Well known, well known. Those 18th century British poets were really something. Is Nastli on the line? I think you are, right? Nastli's next.
Yep, I'm right here.
Oh, great. Okay, go for it, Nastli. Nastli Jimenez.
Yeah. Oh, I guess it, I didn't stop my video, but there
you go.
I've actually never read my poems before to people, so this is my first time, other than maybe my family. Actually, I had this poem that I wrote a really long time ago, and there were some easy phrases and stuff that I knew I could change for given COVID-19 and how people felt. But I think I emailed you this morning about it. So I didn't quite get to perfect it the way I wanted to, but I kind of tried to make it a little bit more that way, you know, between work and my nap that I took, since it's like almost 11 o'clock here. And so I'll start. It was originally called The Power They Lack. And now I guess I'm calling it The Power It Lacks, and I'm sure you guys can guess what it is, right? So, okay. It doesn't have that power to take away our smile. It isn't our style. The sun alone can make us warm. The dawn of a day can wipe tears away. The silence that comes at night, the mystery that awaits light, the excitement of what will happen next, knowing our hypothesis is correct. Yes, trouble it may pass on. Quite scary too. Funny how the whole world can change and turn upside down on a toot. Even so, it won't last. It doesn't extinguish our love for light. We still hunger to see morning's first sight. That fresh dew you see, twinkling, that feeling that it was all made for you. that freshness in the air, that waft, that breeze that transferred its energy into you? No, no power it has against this. Madness, unreasonable it is, that all of this would mean more to us than all the weights and scales ever could be. Go lose your health for wealth, but then how would you enjoy it? And then use your wealth for health, but then hope it's not too late. It's never too late to make the right decision. Sometimes sacrifices are payments for our visions, but its influence is not as strong as I thought it could be. Even in chains, we could see the golden hues, how the green and orange can excite us too. A forest I will run through. Midas will pave the path, and he will race me on the track. Maybe I won't win. Who knows? Chase me. There he goes. Faster, faster. I'm out of breath. In one more lunge, I could be out of step. And these are more than hopes, more than dreams. Some are facts, some have passed. Look out your window and you'll see pieces of this and that. A bird doesn't own a thing, yet it will sing. Sing a song in the lonely night at 2 a.m. or maybe 3. It can be happy, it can bring joy, yet nothing does it own. The day goes on, the sun will come up, animals will eat, flowers will blossom, and I will breathe. That's it.
That's very nice. Good thought nowadays. For this will be over someday, we hope. Yeah, great. And the sun will come up. Very nice. Thank you, Natalie. Natalie is in Texas, right? What
Yeah, sorry.
What
Yeah, so I'm actually I'm the energy and sustainability person for the Club of South Texas. I've been helping with the events for that. A lot of them got canceled. Our big event was Sarah Week that we were trying to host, and then we were doing a dual host, and that literally got canceled the week before because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
They said that paid dues members of other clubs could come, and I didn't know you guys did poetry, and I think it's a very odd thing for MIT people to do poetry. At least that's what I've been told when I was in school. And like they're like, "What? You wrote a poem?" So I was like, "Sure, I'll do this because I'll find out what poems you guys have, because I don't think it was quite common. Let's just say that."
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are humorous. That was a wonderful poem, wonderful image. And I'm glad you found out about this to sign up. That's one of the benefits of a virtual event. You don't have the constraints of geography that, like, for me, it's about an hour drive to every MIT event. That's wonderful. Yeah, the poems I remember from MIT were like e to the x to u dx, e to the x dx, cosine secant tangent sine, 3.1, you know that one. Okay.
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. So thank you. Thanks for joining us. Arun, are you there now?
I am here.
Okay, great. Now, Arun is a very clever guy, a great friend of mine. He plays a bunch of instruments, does rap music, and I have absolutely no idea what he's going to do. Go for it.
Thank you for that brilliant introduction, Harbo. Much appreciated. Thanks so much for hosting, and thank you to everyone who's presented so far. This is such a fantastic mix of MIT references, cultural references. Robert Frost is in there, my favorite poet, and the person who got me into poetry. So Harbo asked me to do something. As he pointed out, I am a rapper and I rap, but I also do write a bunch of poetry. So I figure I would write something today that was about what was going on, and what's going on is, of course, COVID. So here's a COVID poem rap type thing for you. We'll see where it goes. It was all a dream. Getting stuck in the mess of COVID-19 felt like a foreign disease, but soon was the cause of tremendous unease. Came from the pangolin or from the bats? No one really knows, but the spread was fast. People said it's in Wuhan, no big deal. And then it's localized to China, yo, for real. Then it's fine. You haven't been to Asia in the last few weeks. and the outlook finally became kind of bleak. People said, oh no, it's here to stay. Somehow it's just not going away. Step 1, wash your hands. Step 2, don't hang out with people. Don't make plans. Step 3, don't leave the home. Stay in place. Stay all alone. Unless you're a doctor or work at Costco, both are essential. So to work, you must go, but avoid people for the whole day. From everyone, stay at least 6 feet away, or maybe make it 20. The rules keep changing, and many of our leaders just keep blaming. Don't wear a mask if you're not sick, they say. Actually, everyone needs a mask. It's better that way. Don't pay rent. Don't go to work. Shaking someone's hand, man, what a jerk. In a couple of weeks, our lives were turned upside down. Feels like we were starting again from the ground. Cooking for ourselves, teaching our kids at home, jack of all, master of none, it's the new role. Now, fortune was supposed to favor the bold, not those who stayed at home and did as they were told, but it's just starting to take a toll. Whether you're young or old, the employment and uneconomy is going down a hole, and the range of reactions blows my mind. Some stay bored and they count the time while they rhyme. They drink their wine feeling just fine. But others are starting to come together, doing things that will make us all better, like a virtual poetry event by the CNC. And the other great research that gets done at MIT. People are doing mass mask making for donations, working on online education. The medical professionals are saving lives, coming home only to avoid husband, kids, and wives. People are taking the lead on making food to feed those in need without caring about caste or creed. But pause. For the first time in a while, we're all the same. COVID doesn't care about your money or your last name. There's something beautiful in this great equalizer. And of course, I mean the universal need for TP and hand sanitizer. We celebrated 2020 when we were still in BC, before COVID, but hopefully we'll soon be in AD, after disease. It's a world unknown, a world where everything is an unturned stone. I look forward to embarking on this journey together and living in this new, uncharted forever.
That's great. That's very thoughtful. Thank you very much, everyone. Great, thank you. Hey, Bert, are you there, Bert Forbes?
You bet.
Oh, great.
You got
Okay.
my video off.
Yeah, I see. Well, I'm going to guess your wife's name is Candy. I don't know how I knew that, but
You must be psychic or something.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, tell me, I could put her on if you'll turn the video on, but otherwise we can do this without a video.
Well, whatever works for you. You're going to tell us about what you're going to. There you go. We see you.
All right. We share the computer, so she gets credit on the video as well there. As you've guessed by now, I'm Bert Forbes, MIT class of '66. I lived at Theta Xi and I graduated course 6. And after much debate, I decided to go to the 50th reunion in 2016. I even bought a red blazer. It turned out to be fun, and the reunion did too. I afterwards wrote 23 haiku that resulted from it. And if you listen carefully, you might hear the bell curve of emotion. So there'll be 23, if I counted right, individual things, but they're going to kind of roll as one poem. MIT 5-0, how years rolled by and softened, yesterday's long gone. Reunion 50, I won't know anyone else. I don't want to go. Reunion 50, it will happen only once. Okay, I'll go. Reunion 50, I don't know anyone here. Hey, I know that guy. Fiery red blazer, how old to think you look good. MIT 5-0. IHTFP, time wounds all, heals old hatreds. MIT 50. Granite domes whisper, dreams of problem sets gone by, 50 shades of gray. Redcoats are coming. Don't fire, see gray of their eyes. MIT 50. 50 years ago, I couldn't spell MIT. Now I'm a redcoat. Infinite hallway, empty at 9 Saturday, 50 years later. Bucky Beaver ring, do I turn it again now, 50 years later? Of course 6 is best. Maxwell's smart enough to know car 54 lost. All 23 co-eds smarter than I was, true 50 later. City service sign, beacon to find Theta Xi, historic Citgo. 77 Massachusetts Avenue, 02139. 1801 math, 5.01 chemistry, 801 physics. Edgerton Strobe Lab, bore sight the queen of diamonds. Bang! Off with her head. PDP-1 mini, space war ruled big CRT, timeshares beginning. Slide rule on the belt, not cool even 50 back. How do you spell nerd? 1700, even looking back 50 is still too damn much. Course 6, 66, tech is hell, or so they say. Devil made me grad. Reunion 50, what an energizing week. I'm so glad I went. Reunion 50, so many good memories. So I'll go again next time. Thanks.
Thank you, Bert. That's great. Great. You should have worn your red jacket. Maybe.
Yeah, I should have. It's buried somewhere in the closet. The only good thing about it is they've brightened the colors at MIT since I first was there. It was burgundy back in the old days. Now it's cardinal. So I can wear it at my Stanford reunion events too.
Oh, that's good.
get to use it twice instead of once.
Yeah. Well, that's what I remember. Someone described it as the colors of MIT were crimson and gray. And then someone said, no, they're not. They're blood and concrete.
Probably more appropriate.
So we're about, thank you very much. That's great, Bert. Thanks for doing that.
You're very welcome. Thanks for hosting.
Thanks. We're about to open the mic, going to the second session. And I see Kay Robinson has said that they would like to they have an E.E. Cummings poem. Maybe you could, Shuja, can you turn on Kay Robinson? And we'll see which one is it going to be? Love Song of J. Alfred or something else?
Harbo, it says Karen. Sorry, I wasn't clear what your name is.
Oh,
Thank
of
you for
course,
hosting.
wonderful. I didn't put it together. Glad
No
you're here.
worries. I do think the host has to turn my video on, or I could go for it. Here we go.
Shuja is going to do that.
Hello.
Great.
So I would say, like many people here, Robert Frost was sort of the first poet I got interested in. Some very easy, nice couplets and clear message that sort of flows really well. And then I started branching out a lot more during the last few years I was at MIT. Finally got interested in E.E. Cummings. Actually, a friend was taking a class at Harvard and introduced me to a couple pieces. And I think I got to where I liked puzzling out what things meant and sort of looking at things from multiple angles to try to figure out what was going on. There was one poem in particular, which is not the one I'm going to recite, that starts out, "Who pays attention to the syntax of things will never wholly kiss you." And as a junior and senior at MIT, I thought about that a lot because I really like paying attention to the syntax of things. And so I was sort of comparing and contrasting sort of what else would you do if you're not paying attention to things and their syntax? But the specific E poems I was going to recite tonight is, I think like a lot of his poems, a little about identity and also a little bit about a sort of future unknown, which I feel right now the future is extremely unknown. And I am sure the other reason I like it is it's about flowers, or it includes flowers at least. Who am I to say what it's about? So, in time of daffodils, who know the goal of living is to grow, forgetting why, remember how. In times of lilacs, who proclaim the goal of waking is to dream, remember so, forgetting seem. In time of roses, who amaze our here and now with praise, forgetting if, remember yes. In time of all sweet things beyond, whatever mind may comprehend, remember seek, forgetting find. and in a mystery to be, when time from time shall set us free, forgetting me, remember me.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Karen. Thank you, Karen. There's, as I think back on the poems we've heard tonight, we've still got a couple more here. I'm struck by the creativity of the people who came up with their own poems, all the way from haiku to rap, and also the poems that were selected by Frost or E.E. Cummings that reflect the great stuff but the poem somehow speaks to us and how good that is. In that line, I'd like to call on Larry Kelly again, because he had one he wanted to do by Keats. I think it was "Oh Solitude." Are you there, Larry? Are you still on? Or maybe Shuja, you can put Larry on. Hopefully. Maybe. Yeah. I see you, Larry, but I can't hear you. Say something.
Yeah, so what about now?
I can hear you now. Go for it.
Ah, good. Okay, all right, great. Okay, so Keats, a famous, another famous English romantic poet. So he was lived from 1795 to 1821. So he was earlier in time than Henley. Henley was later, almost 100 years later. So Keats was one of the main figures of the second generation of romantic poets, along with Lord Byron and Percy Shelley, despite his works having been in publication for only 4 years before his death, also from TB at the age of 25. His poems weren't well received by critics during his time, but his reputation grew after his death. And by the end of the 19th century, he was one of the most beloved of all English poets. His poetry is characterized by sensual imagery, most notable in his series of odes. This is typical of the Romantic poets, as they aim to accentuate extreme emotion through an emphasis on natural imagery. So, O Solitude by John Keats. O solitude, if I must with thee dwell, let it not be among the jumbled heap of murky buildings. Climb with me the steep, nature's observatory, whence the dell, its flowery slopes, its river's crystal swell may seem a span. Let me thy vigils keep mongst boughs pavilioned, where the deer's swift leap startles the wild bee from the fox-gloved bell. But though I'll gladly trace these scenes with thee, yet the sweet converse of an innocent mind, whose words are images of thoughts refined, is my soul's pleasure. And it sure must be almost the highest bliss of humankind, when to thy haunts 2 kindred spirits flee.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Great. Thank you. Now, we have time for one more poem, and I'd like to go back to Mort Grosser. Mort, among the things he's written are a variety of sonnets that deal with reference to Stanford or MIT. And as you know, the sonnet is a very difficult, at least I find it difficult, poetic structure with the rhyming and the iambic pentameter and anything. So Mort, why don't you give us one of your sonnets? You're muted there, Mort. Shuja, can you turn him off? We can't hear you, Mort. Maybe Shuja can unmute you.
Shuja,
You're on now.
can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. This poem is about a place familiar to many MIT alums in Silicon Valley. When my late wife and I came to Stanford from MIT for PhDs, there were no buildings on Sand Hill Road, from the stop sign at Santa Cruz Avenue to Whiskey Hill Road. No Slack, no 280, no VCs, only empty fields, a few trees, and a split rail fence. After a hike by San Francisquito Creek one day, I passed the site where they were breaking ground for the first time for 3000 Sand Hill Road. And that night, I wrote this sonnet. It was later published in Harper's and has been anthologized in a number of collections. If you're interested in poetic structure, like Harbo, it's a classic rhyme scheme, 2-stanza sonnet written in iambic pentameter. Sandhill Road. The landscape here is Africa in California. Scattered stands of slender eucalyptus spread their shallow horizontal hands and make a spotted shade for leopards or giraffes. I look for leopards lying on the limbs, for lions in the grass. The passage signs are not the tracks of elephants, but panting yellow tractors, stamping down the bushes, trampling on the slender trees like elephants. But still the river draws a belt of green across the brown. The belt is still a perfect belt. I know that if at dusk I climb a tree, and if the moon is bright, I could be watching when the cautious, softly snorting herd of bulldozers comes watering at night.
The herd of bulldozers, great image, great image. Okay. So I would like to actually just throw in one quick poem here at the end as a way of saying goodnight. It's like less than a minute, I'm sure. And I think it's a good poem for this time of being separated from each other and our distance. It's a poem by Spencer Michael Free entitled The Human Touch. While we're all alone, here's the human touch. Here's the human touch in the world that counts. The touch of your hand and mine, which means far more to the faint heart than shelter and bread and wine. For shelter is gone when the night is o'er, and bread lasts only a day. But the touch of the hand and the sound of your voice sing on in the soul always. So with that, we'll all stay together virtually, and everyone stay healthy, take care of yourself, and good night. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Bye-bye. Okay. So Shuja, I think you have to turn us off, right?
Yeah, I'll turn you all off. Good night. This was an amazing evening. Thank you, Harbo. Thank you, all the participants and attendees. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good night, you all.
Thanks, everybody. Greatly appreciate it. Wonderful job. Thank you. Good night.